frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited.
As far as I remember, my mom has always hunted. She's always used a 94 Winchester 30-30, open sights, will not use a scope.
You know, our ancestors, they had to rely on what they had, and when something became worn, they would either unweave it. I have a wagon wheel back there that shows how the ladies going from East Coast to West Coast in the covered wagons took the iron ring off what they call the spares that they took with them. So if they had a breakdown on the big wagons, and she would make rugs while she wasn't doing anything else on the trek. And according to history, that was how durable and how much stamina she had and so forth on how many rugs she could make from, say, like Independence to California or wherever they were going.
Nancy Mallory mentioned she wanted to make this one into buttons, but she didn't think Levi, her son, would let her.
My career path is right now, I'm an agronomist at a local co-op, selling seed, making fertilizer recommendations to local farmers, disease and insect control, give them advice. Been doing that for the past 4 years here in Bramer.
Nancy Mallory held a Winchester lever action in one hand, and she'd had a buck in the iron sights before we arrived.
You've been seeing him around for a while?
I had him on camera.
Or are you talking about the turkey foot?
This.
Oh, I thought you were.
On the camera.
Hey, those two on front there, they're over an inch.
They couldn't take their eyes off of the head where the weird three-pointed claw on the left antler jutted toward the sky, defiant like a giant turkey's three-toed lower extremity.
Walk all the way around like the border so I don't bug you guys. And that way if I jump a deer, it may go towards the city. The bigger ones, they'll go check does around 10 to noon sometimes. So.
We parked along some trees right here and shut everything off and then got into this field of beans. And this is where we are in the tower blind. We've got timber in a little pocket up here. Timber there. Timber here, timber there. And then beans over here. Beans there. Corn here. CRP land out behind us. So it's really, really good deer habitat. Levi sent a text and said that a big buck was headed our way, so.
When Lewis called friend Levi Mallory to take him up on an offer of a hunt on a family farm in Missouri, he said he could tag along with his mother Nancy on the old home place.
I've been hunting since I was probably big enough to walk. I remember my first buck I shot I was 11 years old, so it's been 29 years ago. My first buck was shot on this property. Of course, it's been a long time ago and things have changed. But
I just heard bawling, crying, and sounded like an estrus bleat. That's what I think it was, a doe in heat. These deer are hypersensitive to anything that's out of the ordinary in their environment. So if I'm sitting here in this blind and I drop my phone, which I did, or I bang the gun against the side of the wall here, I can spook a deer that might be 50 yards away in the brush coming toward me. Levi, on the other hand, he's seen a couple deer and they've been headed this direction, so I'm still looking. He's on the other side of these trees, so he's about 60 yards away.
It was a feeling. No flicker of movement arrested Lewis's gaze. It was a revelation.
Hidden as it can get.
Now a slight movement, the shine of an ear, an antler. This might not be easy. If one antlered adolescent buck could hide so close, how easy would it be to miss another deer?
The CRP process, it was put into place for farmers on, it's for what they determine as highly erodible land. Because when you farm it and you work the ground, it wants to erode away, wash away. So the government came up with a CRP program to always have a standing crop there to keep that from happening.
Way deep in the brush. I don't know how I ever saw him.
I got some footage of a couple of them.
Did ya?
One of them I would definitely want to shoot.
Yeah.
Though it was November, though every puff of breeze knocked down another handful of leaves, this cover was high enough to conceal a full-grown buck with his head held high.
In this whole section, it is the only standing crop. 150 yards is a radish, turnip, and food plot.
3 acres of beans right here. It's the only standing crop in this whole area. Beyond, those are turnip fields, radishes. There's corn over there, but it's all been cut down. This is the only thing that's bringing these deer in right here. These beans. There's 2 travel corridors come right around us right here, both sides. So these deer being in the rut now, they're gonna want to be right here where we are. 3 acres of beans. We're gonna have to dial this back down to like 3 or something, because as close as we saw that buck earlier today, you know, anything could happen in here. So I'm sitting here thinking, and I gotta really pay attention to these ditches. We got a dry creek here and a dry creek there. And those are just the natural travel corridors for these deer, especially now when bucks are on the move, checking for does.
Back in the blind, Lewis watched the shadows lengthen and the doe walk out of the trees.
Two does just ran by that way, right along that far tree line.
In the morning, Lewis would hunt in a different blind, this one offering views to 300 and 400 yards, looking over tall grass and browse.
All right, we're in a new blind this morning. We're looking out here. Got a nice open area in front of us, got open behind us, all around us. And we know that the deer have been moving in toward a pond that's back here. So we got a wind and we got heavy mist. So I think with this steady wind, the deer are gonna wanna come out into the open and lie down. The ground cover is deceptively tall. In some places here, a buck could walk right through there and you wouldn't see anything except for his antlers. Got 316 to that tree line. Sitting here looking out at this tree line, it reminds me of one of the battles in the war of northern aggression. There's a battle line of soldiers here, and they're watching the woods like this. They are not really expecting to be attacked from the woods. It's early in the morning, just like this, and all of a sudden deer just start coming out of the woods. Deer and birds and rabbits and animals just start pouring out of the woods. Then they realized something's behind them, something's moving them, pushing them out. And it was the enemy, and the enemy came through the trees, and a big battle right there. It was a morning like this. We're gonna pull out for a couple of hours, get a bite to eat, and get back here into this stand, because I think it's gonna pay off.
Lewis climbed down from the stand and made their way back to the vehicle. Drove the 5 miles back into town and Nancy's house.
And that's a radish.
Yeah, they're all radishes that you don't like.
When Lewis called friend Levi Mallory to take him up on an offer of a hunt on a family farm in Missouri, he said he could tag along with his mother Nancy on the old home place.
The wind's blowing again, still. And I reckon it's gonna blow all afternoon long. And it's gonna rain tonight. Left side, left side. All of a sudden, 4 bucks just came right along the edge right there. You could see the white tips of their antlers. They were running, and then another one popped up to the left. So 3 bucks in front of us, 1 off to the left. I don't know what's going on, but I've got a good eyeball on 1 buck right now. Now he's got his head down.
Long hours passed between the sighting of the next.
Okay, I see the antlers of that bigger one. And they're moving around. He's like 10 feet.
In late afternoon, 3 bucks ran out of the trees from the east. They flowed in and out of sight on every bank.
There's 4 bucks in front of us. I think there's 3 laying in this little stand of trees. And they're not very far. Not much more than 70 yards away. So it's just a waiting game now, and it's starting to get dark.
He turned a circle and bedded again, and that was how Lewis left him in the dark. Lewis climbed up the scaffold and into the stand well before the first rays of sun began to light the eastern sky. Well after sunup, Lewis spotted that young 5-pointer from the day before.
The same group of bucks that were here last night are still here this morning. All of a sudden, we've got blue sky. It's been really windy. Now we've got blue sky. The clouds have almost all broken up. The deer's coats are going to be wet. They're going to want to shake it off, and I'm hoping that they're going to want to be out in the sunlight a little bit longer.
A flicker of antler caught Lewis's eye as another buck walked in. As soon as this one was out of sight, the big 8-pointer showed himself, his feet up on a rise of land, his head and neck elevated. The 3-position safety in business mode, the center line of the index finger intersected with the center line of the crescent of the trigger. The rifle crack melded with the sound of a bullet's impact. 119 yards out, on a slight downhill, the buck dropped out of sight along the woven fabric of the tree line.
Should be 150 steps right there, about 25 degrees off of north. I kept asking myself, should I go in after him? And obviously, if I'd been hunting with a bow, I would have had to. If I'd been hunting with a muzzleloader, I would have had to. I knew the way he was disappearing in here that this cover was higher than we thought that it was from the blind. If I had come in, if I'd walked in and tried to make something happen,
I'd had maybe a 5% chance of closing the deal, because there were 3 other bucks around at least, and 1 doe, and any one of those could have spooked him and run him off before I got there. Some of my biggest deer I've shot in the neck because that's the only opportunity they gave me. And I don't like to take that shot, but with a rifle that's zeroed and you trust it so much, and a bullet that you trust, like this Nosler AccuBond long range, that's an easy shot. It's a long time coming to get a mature whitetail like this one. Living in the West, we get lots of opportunity to hunt blacktails and hunt mule deer, but I've killed one nice Columbia whitetail, very special buck, and this one, and this is I think my 4th trip to the east to try to get a buck like this. They were just right here where they were last night.
They stayed there all night.
They must have.
I'm guessing 5 years old. Typically around here, the younger they are, to be more defined white. Up until they're 4, their antlers are a lot smaller in circumference. Seems like when they hit that 5-year-old mark, they start getting some more mass on them around here. That's just pretty. I'm glad you got it done.
Oh man.
On the 4th day, Levi Mallory climbed into another blind that looked over a clearing, which spanned a narrow valley.
We've seen small bucks so far this morning. We just had a nice mature doe come in. We're hoping a decent buck will come in behind her. The hawks are out and about, so we're being patient. Hopefully a mature buck comes in here pretty quick. When these turnips and radishes, you plant them early in the season, and what happens during the winter is during a frost, what that does is it draws them sugars up from the bulb of the plant up to the leafy greens, and it brings the sugars up, and the deer really like them. So you'll notice later in the year as the temperatures drop and freezing occurs more frequently, deer will start hitting these food plots more often to take advantage of those sugars.
450 yards from tree line to tree line gave Levi an opportunity to spot deer if they came out of the trees. At mid-morning, a small buck showed, and a few minutes later, a pair of does. When the young buck's body language changed, Levi knew to be ready.
He probably didn't like that. Looks like he's lost a couple fights. If he makes it through the winter, he'll be a better animal next year. I'm guessing he got in a fight, and it may have been with that deer my mom got. So he may realize he's not around. He's starting to show up more and more. So, but they're definitely out searching for does right now.
The 2 does moved in and out of the fringe of timber, a glimpse of a large-bodied animal, visible and invisible again.
Oh, they're way down there. I'll have to shoot at him for you. Yeah.
The buck was a minute behind them. He strode out of the trees and stopped to put his head down to get another sniff of the intoxicating aroma that led him on. The buck took one leap, all 4 of its feet off the ground, then turned hard left and pounded head down into the belt of trees.
He's a nice one, guys. Awesome. They went in the timber, and then these does came out 300 yards away. And I got a good look at him running from us, and I knew he was a good one.
It was the longest shot Levi had made on a deer on his home farm.
Evidently, this is where the impact took place. We found a pretty good steady trail of blood right here, so hopefully when we get to the end of this, we'll find a nice whitetail deer. It's got to be close to 3, I would think.
They found the 9-point buck 60 yards on, where his last run ended at a sheep fence.
There he is, guys. Another buck down in Missouri.
Guess I don't have to whisper anymore, huh? This is one I haven't seen on the farm before. He must have moved in from somewhere else. Guess I don't have to whisper anymore, huh? Another buck down.
I don't know if Elizabeth will want to hunt when she gets older, but I hope she will. I think it ties a person to the land, says Levi.
Nice. Woo. So I've never seen him before on any of my game cameras, so I'd say he's moved in from the west somehow, some way.
Maybe someday Elizabeth or her little sister Ava will see a buck with a weird turkey foot antler show up on the trail cameras or out in one of Daddy's food plots. In a few years, Elizabeth will carry her own rifle, the cloth of her own hunting career, drawn into a tapestry of tradition on the family farm.
Radishes. I hate them, but the deer like them. I gotta get my breath right.